RFK Jr. finally announced his VP pick. Now, this is causing a lot of buzz on the interwebs out there. He has decided to pick Nicole Shanahan. I talked about her last week. Now, the RFK supporters, they are split over this decision. Some of them are excited about this pick, and some of them are not happy that this is who he chose. Some people have actually decided to walk away from his campaign because he chose Nicole Shanahan. This is someone I've said before, she describes herself as a progressive. She has supported Democrat candidates before, although she did in her speech, I guess, basically criticize the Democratic Party and the Republican Party for not meeting the needs of the American people. But she is known as supporting Democrat candidates. Also, George Soros, she's connected there. She donated a lot of money to RFK's Super PAC. So that Super Bowl ad that you saw of RFK, she actually donated a heavy sums of money to that. So some people are upset because they feel like she bought her way in. This is someone that does have a lot of money. And some people are upset because RFK chose her and not Tulsi Gabbard. There's a lot going on the interwebs, but let's go ahead and dive in to RFK's announcement. Here it is, folks. We got a lot to unpack here.
Why I'm so proud to introduce to you the next Vice President of the United States, my fellow lawyer, a brilliant scientist, technologist, a fierce warrior mom, Nicole Shanahan.
That, of course, was Robert F. Kennedy Jr. this afternoon in Oakland, announcing Nicole Shanahan as his 2024 running mate. Shanahan is a San Francisco-based attorney and entrepreneur. New polling shows Kennedy in double digits, but still trailing President Biden and Donald Trump. But one...
Let me pause here for a second because the polls are iffy. You're going to see another poll that says something else. But what this does show you is that RFK Jr. consistently has been at that double-digit mark, I think, from the moment actually that he announced his campaign. It's been up and down. At one point, I've seen it like at 25%. It changes. But for the most part, he seems to stay at least at the double digits.
One factor that could give his candidacy a major boost, getting on the ballot in all 50 states. There you see where he's on the ballot now. Just one lonesome state out there out west, Utah. And this is where the Libertarians come in, and the candidate and the party are talking. Okay, panel, how important is it for, obviously he's got to get on the ballot to get elected, but the Libertarian Party has been on the ballot in all 50 states in 5 elections since Reagan was elected in 1980. That would be huge. Yeah. How do you think, from all the libertarians you know, I know all you guys have read The Fountainhead. Oh, yeah. I know I have.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with you, Mick. How do you think they're going to react to this election? And will it help?
Let me pause here for just a second about the Libertarian Party, because you're actually going to hear from the chair of the Libertarian Party in just a second about this decision. So we do have to acknowledge the fact that RFK Jr. is only on the ballot in one state. Although he's met signature requirements for a state like Arizona, he's not on the ballot there yet. So basically, strategically, it would be easier for him if he were the nominee of the Libertarian Party, because then he would get that 50 state ballot access. But the question is, does the Libertarian Party actually want RFK Jr.? And considering now that he chose Nicole Shanahan, how do they feel about her? Because you're going to hear what Angela has to say about his pick. I don't know how else to say this. It makes me wonder, because RFK Jr. keeps saying they're going to be on the ballot in all 50 states. It is really hard as an independent to make that happen. And it makes me wonder if in the end, he's going to end up doing some type of write-in campaign. I don't know. I don't know what it is. But RFK Jr. is saying one thing and the Libertarian Party is saying something different. I'm going to let you hear what this guy says here, and then you're going to hear from Angela herself. I want you to hear what she had to say about this.
Gain their endorsement.
First of all, there's a bunch of different questions there. I have no idea who this is. I thought it was Sergey Brin's
ex-wife. She was the lady who paid for his Super Bowl ad. She's on the ticket mostly
$4 million worth of ad
to get money, which is a good reason to take a vice president. No one knows who she is, which is fine. I don't think she's going to be the vice president.
Well, I mean, again, an unconventional choice by an unconventional candidate.
Kennedy,
we live in a Joe Rogan world, man.
Kennedy screwed up and just didn't understand ballot access. That's Utah's the easiest state in the country to get on, and he needs to be on the Libertarian now to have any chance, or else his campaign is over.
But he's got to be the nominee.
But I don't think he didn't understand ballot access. And I say that because he actually has been on a number of shows and where people did explain this to him. I think I remember him seeing on Kim Iverson's show as well, I think twice. So people did explain to RFK Jr. about this. So come on, he's a Kennedy. He's from a political dynasty. Like he knows how this works. I don't think that was the issue at all. But in reference to him running through the Libertarian Party, this is what the chair of the Libertarian Party had to say about RFK Jr.'s pick of Nicole Shanahan. And she don't sound too happy about it. Listen to this.
I think that a lot of libertarians are a little bit confused over why he chose Nicole Shanahan. I'm sure she's a lovely person, but she doesn't necessarily fit into alignment with any of our views.
And okay, let me press you on that. In particular, what are her views that are not in alignment, that conflict with libertarian platform?
Well, we haven't really heard her make any strong political statements today, but I know that she was a former Biden and Buttigieg supporter, and she supported Gascon, who, you know, from a libertarian perspective, is not been a good district attorney. We don't like that he doesn't seem to respect property rights.
Let me pause. So I told you this was going to be an issue for some, right? Like Nicole Shanahan, again, she describes herself as a progressive. It appears Angela has done her homework. People have researched her to see who she donated to. You know, she was supporting the Democratic Party. So it also said something to some of RFK supporters that it appears that RFK Jr. has not fully detached himself from the Democratic Party. And that's what some people were saying online by this pick in Nicole. There was a lot of bitterness online after this pick. I think for whatever reason, a lot of his supporters expected him to choose like a Jesse Ventura or to choose Tulsi Gabbard. And it sounds like if he was going to pick a female, it seems like from the online discourse that they wanted him to choose Tulsi Gabbard, someone who was completely detached from the Democratic Party. She's also like in the Silicon Valley, you know, bro area, like, I don't know, tech money and just big money. It just, it makes me feel grimy.
So I'm really unsure how she's going to fit in with the Libertarian Party. You know, I'm anxious to hear about it.
Okay, well, what about the top of the ticket himself, RFK Jr.? Now, we know that he visited your convention or your gathering, I don't know what the right word is, in February. By a convention, thank you. By many accounts, it went well. He was warmly received. It's been reported that you personally have spoken with him about a possible party ticket. I know that the party gathers here in Washington on May 23rd, is it? And you can pretty much decide whatever you want to decide at this point. What is the latest thinking? What is the latest, as much as you can tell me or care to reveal, about your talks with RFK Jr.?
Certainly. Well, you know, I don't get to hand choose who our presidential nominee is going to be, but I have given him, you know, I've given him my ear several times. And to be fair, I do that with all of our presidential candidates, Michael Rechtenwald, you know, Lars Mepstad, Mike Termott, all of them. But I've explained that if you're going to seek the Libertarian National Committee's nomination for president, you've got to work to get delegates. We as members don't cozy up to someone who doesn't want to make an effort to get to know us. And he seems.
So you see that? So this seems to be similar to the same problem that Dr. West had being a part of the Green Party, is that Angela is basically saying to RFK Jr. that, like, you can't just come in here with name recognition and not do the work. You're going to have to do the work like all the other libertarian candidates, right? They do have candidates running. They have Lars, I believe Chase Oliver is also running with them. So they do have candidates that are running. But just because you're a Kennedy, you can't walk in here and not do the work like everybody else. So it sounds like a similar thing. So what I've noticed is that you know, some of the third parties, the Green Party and Libertarian Party, don't seem to be too keen on someone just coming into their party, someone that has a big name and coming into the party, and just because they have that big name, being able to kind of, you know, just, I don't want to say use the party or take advantage of the party, but basically be a part of it for the campaign and not really be a contributing member going forward, and et cetera. Right. So this is, it speaks volumes. It does go to show you that, you know, even with the third parties, just because they're third parties, that doesn't mean that you can just come in and kind of have it your way.
To understand that, you know, he came to California. He sent some people to New York. Unfortunately, I believe he had a scheduling conflict, but it really remains to be seen what he's going to do between now and May. You've got to work to get your delegates. And usually when people attend these state conventions, they are already going with who they're going to choose in mind. You know, that's why we go to these nominating conventions. We go because we want to be the ones deciding who's going to represent us nationally.
Okay, so doesn't sound too good over there. Now, RFK Jr. for me, I told you guys, I think if RFK Jr. were to change his position on Israel and Gaza, which I don't think he will, I think he is a Zionist true and through. I know some of you have been very offended by some of the comments that he's made about the Palestinian people. I told you before, I can't vote for RFK Jr. I cannot vote for anyone who just basically is for the war, someone who says that they're a peace candidate, and then I see them on Twitter saying give Israel all the weapons that they need, you know, calling Palestinian people pampered and spoiled. I can't support anyone who doesn't get the Palestinian issue right. That is a red line for me, because what you see happening in Gaza, that is just the beginning for what could happen to other countries in that region and other countries across the world. That is just the beginning. I've told you before how dangerous Zionism can be. So he's not my candidate. But it seems like bringing in Nicole Shanahan, you're going to see her backstory here in just a second. It seems like this is also his way of trying to capture some of the younger voters who may not like his position on Gaza, but they may be attracted to Nicole because she is younger, she's youthful, right? And Nicole has a rags to riches story. Listen to this.
Just talking to Joe.
Oh, great.
Across.
What young people are faced with today is completely unprecedented, and it's going to take a new generation of leadership that understands deeply those threats, because they are themselves technologists, to address the issues at hand. It's going to take leadership that has spent their life in technology. It's going to take leadership that understands what questions to ask, how to ask them, and what it looks like to implement a plan. This is not the America of the 1950s. This is the America of 2024. And in this America, it's going to take communities coming to the White House that never have actually been in the White House. And these are going to be tech communities. These are going to be Gen Z communities.
So you see this? These are going to be Gen Z communities. You see? So this is the person that he's trying to get to appeal to the younger voters. That's my theory.
These are going to be millennial communities who really believe that working together is going to get us to a healthier America with solutions that actually work. I was born in Roseville, California, near Sacramento. Then my mom and dad decided to move back to Oakland, into the home my dad grew up in. You learn from a young age growing up in Oakland that we are all made equal and we all get a shot at something great. And the color of your skin just gives you a different, cool cultural perspective. And you know, I'm half Chinese, half Caucasian, but to the people around me, I was Nicole. My mom immigrated to the United States in 19...
Okay, so you see this part of the story? This is someone who comes from an immigrant family, right? So you guys see what he's doing? Oh man, what's this? Whoever, she grew up in Oakland. That's a rich area as far as I'm concerned. It wasn't always that way though. Oakland was not always that way. But you see what he's trying to do?
83 from Guangzhou, China. My father in particular struggled with substance abuse, various mental health challenges. We relied on government assistance for a good portion of my childhood. Every time my dad lost a job, there wasn't a lot of money to cover basic expenses like food. And we would get food stamps and go to the local grocery store with our mom, my brother, and I. And at the checkout counter, I remember she would ask my brother and I to go stand by the magazines when it was time to pay. Whew. It was hard. It's really hard. Those programs, they saved my family.
So you guys see this? So here's another thing. This is someone that grew up having to be on welfare, right? Someone whose family had to use like food stamps or whatever. And she said those programs helped and saved. Listen to this.
Gave me a chance. I went to the University of Puget Sound in Tacoma, Washington. I graduated in 2007 and I started working actually on medical device patents as a paralegal. I was always asked to be kind of the resident law firm nerd that was in charge of making sure the software always worked well and represented all the client data correctly. And I loved it. I was at Santa Clara Law School, which is really in the heart of Silicon Valley, and trains some of the top IP law professionals in the country. In 2014, I joined Stanford Law and Computer Science to become a Codex Fellow. My center at Stanford, Codex, one of our core themes is how to build humanistic programming into AI. AI unregulated can be disastrous for us. We're already seeing early signs of it. And you know, on day one of Bobby Kennedy's presidency as his vice president, I will mobilize the best legal ethicists in AI on the planet.
Let me pause here because you guys are cracking me up in the chat. Rose said, from food stamps to a billionaire husband. How did that happen? You guys are cracking me up. But we're not going to play this entire thing. It's really long, but you get an idea of who she is. So what RFK Jr. is basically trying to do, he got someone who was young and young. I mean, she's not in her 50s. She's not in her 40s. He got someone who was younger. He found someone that was from an immigrant family, like her mom immigrated to the United States. Someone who actually had to use welfare, was on welfare programs. Right? Someone who basically is trying to paint it as a rags to riches story. But remember the reason how she got her money, right? She married Sergey Brin. Sergey Brin was a co-founder of Google. Then she got divorced. Okay. I ain't saying she a gold digger. Anyway, Nicole has a lot of money. A lot of money. Okay. So here's the other thing. Now, someone pointed this out. I didn't think about this. You guys let me know how you feel. But she kind of bought her way in. Now, Catherine brought up something about The Voice. I don't know. You guys let me know. Catherine said, I'm going to say something about RFK's VP pick that comes after years of being an executive advertising producer. And that is the following. Most advertisers prefer a male voice over in their TV and radio ads, as deep male voices have a stronger impact in relaying a message, especially in positions of power. Since RFK is already handicapped in that department, his VP pick, who sounds like a nervous high school girl with a whiny voice, was very misguided in my opinion. Even if her ideas were brilliant, and she should have kept it at immigration, foreign wars, and protection of the First Amendment instead of microplastics. She's projected nothing that says competent world leader that is prioritizing issues based on urgency. This may hurt him badly. And how do you guys feel about that? Do you think her voice is an issue? I don't know. Again, like I said, I think he's trying to have someone like her appeal to the younger population, maybe some of the people that don't want to vote for Biden or Donald Trump. And now there's a difference of opinion. Like there was some criticism there, but Ryan brought up something else. Like I said, not everyone is upset by this decision. Ryan said, weeks ago, I began researching Nicole Shanahan. A gut feeling suggested she was going to be the pick. I really wish folks would have familiarized themselves with her before dramatically jumping ship, damaging campaign efforts. So you see this? I told you some people left after it was announced that she was probably going to be the pick. In this clip from long before VP talks or presidential run by RFK Jr., she speaks about her history and this being a time to heal. Sound familiar? There are so many reasons she fits. So listen to what she said in this clip here. Again, this is before she was chosen.
The next slide, please. My grandfather came around eventually, and he actually raised my mother as his son because he needed somebody to bring up. And my mother made it to the United States under Deng Xiaoping's kind of open door policy. She was an accountant. And so she ended up in the Bay Area in school learning how to balance books. I was always confused by my mother. She never told me about her life. I'm still learning about it, the pain, the struggle, the abuse. And, you know, her legacy is one that I think is going to be about that immigrant, swallow the pain, and do your best with what you have. And that white knuckle approach to life is extremely hard, but it's also extremely effective. And I don't think it's the way that we carry on in the next generation. I think it's time to heal.
Interesting. Interesting there. Time to heal, right? But listen to what James said. He responded to that video. James Roach said, but isn't her main claim to fame and wealth is that she divorced the right guy, like the former Miss Gates and the former Miss Bezos and the former ... You know, it's really interesting, too, that this was actually the nail in the coffin for some of RFK's supporters, because I would have thought the nail in the coffin would have been his support for Israel. You know, him saying fund Israel. And some people did walk away then, but it seemed like more people were more upset about his pick for Nicole Shanahan than his position on Israel and Gaza. So it's just really interesting. Again, I said before, I feel like she kind of bought her way in. And even Robert Reich said something about her money. Now, I'm going to play this clip from Robert Reich, but I just want to say again, Robert Reich, a lot of times he talks out both sides of his mouth because he's really good at telling you what the problem is. But then he tells you to continue to do what you are already doing to allow that problem to persist. I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. So he mentions here about Nicole's money. Listen to this.
RFK's running mate, Nicole Shanahan, was picked solely because she has so much money. I mean, talk about a cynical ploy. I mean, we are in an era where big money is rotting, poisoning our political system. And so somebody who is already a spoiler, who's there for no reason other than what? His own ego, to choose somebody who's going to help him be even more of a spoiler because she has a lot of money to be his vice president? I mean, can you imagine? Is anybody else outraged about this? You should be. RFK's.
So here's the problem with Robert, okay? Because Robert, This is the same guy that just last year, he was telling people that he wanted Liz Cheney to run for president so that we wouldn't get Donald Trump. Robert Reich, he's really good at explaining the problem. But then he'll talk about the money, the corruption with the money. He'll talk about labor. He'll talk about all those things. But then he'll still tell you to support people like Joe Biden. He never goes that extra mile to tell you to stop doing the things that's causing this to happen in the first damn place. So there's that. Now, RFK Jr. actually did respond recently to his VP pick. He was just on News Nation with Chris Cuomo. Let's go ahead and see this here.
Yesterday, independent presidential candidate RFK Jr. announced his choice for VP running mate, 38-year-old Nicole Shanahan, self-described progressive through and through. Well, then why isn't she running as a Democrat? Same reason Kennedy isn't. They wouldn't let him into the primary process. She came from being the daughter of a poor Chinese immigrant mother to a millionaire tech entrepreneur. Here are the highlights from the announcement.
Well, I'm proud to introduce to all of you the next Vice President of the United States of America, Nicole Shanahan. Thank you all very much.
Every time my dad lost his job, our family just couldn't cover expenses. Food, gas, clothing, upkeep. I don't think we would have made it without food stamps and government help. As you probably know, I became very wealthy later on in life, but my roots in Oakland taught me many things I have never forgotten. That the purpose of wealth is to help those in need. So I come to you today as a former Democrat. I come to you as a woman not quite 40. I come to you as someone who has experienced sickness and health and poverty and wealth. And I come to you as a mother. If you are one of those disillusioned Republicans, I welcome you to join me, a disillusioned Democrat, in this movement to unify and heal America.
Gotta tell you, I thought that was well delivered, okay? Now, how did it play? Depends who you ask. All right, let's bring in Robert F. Kennedy Jr. right now. Thank you very much, Bobby, for joining us. It's good to have you.
Chris, great to be back with you.
I want to get through some big points so we can get to the people's questions for you. Look, the knock on Shanahan is easy, that she's not ready to be VP. You're young. We don't have, there are no questions like with Trump and Biden in terms of, well, what happens if Bobby gets sick? How do you respond to the idea that Shanahan checks a lot of boxes, but none that would make her able to run the country?
I would say a couple things, Chris. One is that I'm guessing she probably has a higher IQ than almost anybody who I've seen in public life today. She's an expert on AI, which we need in the government right now. She's an expert on chronic disease, which is probably arguably our biggest issue in this country. We've gone from 6% of people having chronic disease when my uncle was president to 60% today. We've got an entire generation disabled by neurological injuries, autoimmune injuries, allergic injuries. And we have nobody talking about it. We're paying more now, Chris, for diabetes than for our defense budget. So when I was a kid, a typical pediatrician.
We'll be careful with this because YouTube can be kind of funny about like that medical stuff. But one thing I think that's important, again, she does describe herself as a progressive, and this turns some people off, the fact that he chose her, because it signals to people that he hasn't fully walked away from the Democratic Party, which is it's a sign to people, right? So there's that. But then there's also this point here. I wanted to fast forward just a little bit because I want you to hear what RFK Jr. says here at this moment. Remember, whoever you pick for vice president actually does matter, because if something were to happen to RFK Jr. and he was president, then she would be president of the United States. So just keep that in mind. And that's how, people are looking at this.
The Libertarian Party is interested in you. They have some questions about Shanahan. You'll have to meet with them. Do you have to make that work to get on enough state ballots to be viable to win? And if you cannot get on enough state ballots to be viable to win, will that be the demarcation line for you in terms of whether you decide to stay in the race or not?
You know, Chris, people have been asking me this from the beginning. I get this question, and I know you don't follow the crowd on anything, but I do get this question from every reporter. You know, what are you going to do if you don't get on the ballot? And I say the same thing every time. I say, we're going to be on the ballot in every state, all 50 states and the District of Columbia. I'm not saying that to spin something or to, you know, feed you a line. I'm saying it because it's going to happen, and it's going to happen very, very quickly. So just, you know, give us about 8 weeks.
I'm giving it to you. I'm asking it conditionally, just with where the map is right now.
No,
and with the Libertarian ticket, do you need them? Do you need to run on their line?
No. I'm very aligned with libertarians on a lot of issues. I love libertarians. I love the way they think about liberty. I think it's really critical and important. And I think on 80% of the issues, I'm aligned with 80% of libertarians. So I do like the idea of running on their line, and we've talked about it and toyed with it and talked to them about it, but we don't need to do that. We're not going to need any political party. We're going to make it on our own.
I mean, look.
Okay, so let's talk about something here, ladies and gentlemen. I know my Wi-Fi was a little bit choppy. I think it says it's stable now. I haven't actually reset my router in a while, so I need to get back in the habit of doing that. But it says it's stable for now. But what I wanted to say is that I think RFK Jr. is not being honest here. The reality is, as an independent, it is very difficult for you to get on the ballot in all 50 states. I mean, look at someone like Ross Perot, who was a billionaire, right? And he actually did pretty well when he was on the debate stage, but it is very difficult. So for him to say that he doesn't really need the Libertarian Party, I think it seems like to me he must be banking on Nicole's money to help get him that ballot access in those states. Because the way is you can get the signatures and grassroots efforts and get on the ballot like the Green Party's doing with Jill Stein, or you can kind of buy your way onto the ballot. And it seems like to me, that's what he's banking on, you know? So, but I think he's being disingenuous there to make it seem like he doesn't really need them. Like, I think you do need them. I think you do. Now, that being said, this is actually really scaring the Biden administration. Apparently, after this announcement was made, the Biden administration apparently went into panic mode and started making some phone calls. Because again, this is someone who donated to people like Pete Buttigieg, the Biden administration. She has the George Soros connection. She has the WEF connection. She has donated to the Democratic Party. She's young. She's a part of that tech Silicon Valley area, right? So they know that this actually could hurt Joe Biden. Listen to what they said here on Fox at 5 or 5 at Fox.
Now we begin with the Democrats in a panic mode as they scramble to save President Biden's re-election hopes from the threat of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Shortly after RFK Jr. named his vice presidential pick, frantic Democrats hopped on a phone call, blasting the third-party candidate. They referred to Kennedy as a, quote, spoiler, and his campaign as, quote, dangerous, claiming that if he's in the race, Biden will lose and Trump will win. According to Axios, the Biden campaign has already started going on offense, assembling a political machine just to attack RFK Jr. And the DNC is building a team to take on third-party candidates who stand in Biden's way. Critics are ripping Democrats for trying to silence third-party presidential bids and, quote, kill democracy. Kayleigh McEnany, the question is, will their successes or will their attempts be successful? And do you deem RFK Jr. as big of a threat to them as they deem him to them?
No doubt about it. And RFK Jr. became the biggest threat to Joe Biden yesterday. Look, I had taken us through polling that shows RFK can take from both parties, can take from both candidates. I brought up recently the CNN poll in Michigan. It shows Trump loses 2 points with RFK in. But then you go to Pennsylvania, Trump gains 2 points. Well, Paul Begala, the Democrat strategist, wrote this about yesterday. RFK Jr.'s VP pick is a missile aimed at Biden. He went on to say, RFK Jr. has ended the debate as to who RFK hurts, because the selection he has made for VP, she is a tried and true Democrat. She's donated to Democratic causes. I think it is fair to describe her as progressive. That is permission for anyone unhappy with Joe Biden to come on and vote for that ticket.
See, you didn't even have to. This is the thing. They were worried that Marianne and Dean Phillips were going to be the issue. And I said, I've been saying this from day one when RFK Jr. announced his campaign, that it is a mistake for Joe Biden and Donald Trump to pretend like RFK was not a threat. I don't think Joe Biden expected RFK Jr. to stay in this race as long as he did. I don't think he expected him to build up momentum, especially after some of his cringe, flip-flopping, etc. But he's continuing to build momentum. And now he announced his VP pick, and it's someone that was friendly with the Democratic Party. So now they're like, oh, crap, we actually do have a problem. And none of these people were attacking it. I said this before. I'm like, why none of these candidates are coming after RFK Jr. knowing he's polling the way that he is? But now they actually see him as a legitimate threat. So behind the scenes, people are kind of scurrying, trying to figure out, what do we do? Because this is someone that could actually affect Joe Biden. And it actually is. I'm going to show you the most recent poll. And it's going to show you who RFK Jr. is now pulling more support from. Because before I told you he was pulling support from Trump, pulling support from Biden, a little bit of both. But since this announcement of the VP pick, things have changed.
The challenge for RFK is this. Can he get on ballots? Politico reported earlier, actually it was CBS that reported, in Nevada, he's collected 15,000 signatures, but there's a nuanced rule. Oh, you have to have named your VP candidate. Well, he just did that yesterday. So officially, he's only on the ballot in Utah. If he can get out of the ballot, he's a threat to Joe Biden. And last point, just Trump tweeted out, I love that RFK is running. That was yesterday. So there you go. There you go, Harris.
All right. Now let's take a look at the poll, because I'm going to show you how things have changed over time. The Hill actually put this poll out. This was released today. The current numbers as it stands right now between Biden, Trump, and RFK in the polls. Trump has a 2.3% lead based on 106 polls. So this is the average of all those polls there. Take a look at this, folks. Again, you got to remember, this is the average of those polls. So when they combine all of them, we're looking at 9.5% for RFK Jr. That's a lot for someone running as an independent. I want people to understand that. That's a lot. He's over the 5%, right? We have Donald Trump at 41.5%, Joe Biden at 39.2%. As you can see, if we look at the map, let's get their faces out the way. We'll just hover over here. And I want to pull up so you can see the date. March 27th, this was after his announcement. RFK Jr. 9.5%. So you can see that's the most recent amount there. But as you can see, looking at the numbers, he's now pulling more support from Joe Biden. So now some of the Biden supporters have dropped off and either are going towards RFK Jr. or they've dropped off completely, right? And you can see how the numbers have changed over time. Now, when we go back to September, he was at 19% on average. His numbers have gone up and down, just like Biden and Trump, up and down and up and down. And you can see how it's just kind of changed over time. But it does appear like he seems to be affecting Biden more than Donald Trump. I don't know why this changed on me, but he seems to be affecting Biden more than he's affecting Donald Trump now. And then these are the 106 polls. I'm not going to go through all of these because we'll be here all night. It is what it is, right? But these are all the different polls. The Economist poll shows him at 3%, Harris Forbes 12%, and then these dates go back a little bit, a couple days ago. Fox News poll 12%, Quinnipiac 13%, and it goes on and on and on. But you see Trump is gaining points as we go along, and Joe Biden is not. That's what you have to pay attention to. This number on the side that says +1 Trump or whatever, notice you're not seeing that for Biden, not until March 16th to March 19th. It was +1 for Joe Biden. But as we move closer towards the end of this month, notice you don't see any more pluses for Joe Biden. So the Democratic Party, the Biden administration, yeah, they're freaking out. I told people not to sleep on this dude. I told you, I said, look, he's not my candidate, but I still don't think you should like pretend like he's not in this race, especially when he was polling like double digits. So they're in panic mode. Now, for the people who like Tulsi and are mad because he didn't pick Tulsi, I don't know why he didn't pick Tulsi. I would actually imagine that his polling probably would be higher if he had picked Tulsi, right? But for whatever reason, that didn't happen. So I don't know. But some people hopped off the RFK train after that. They were like, oh, hell no. He picked this woman instead of Tulsi. I'm out. But yeah, I was surprised he didn't go with her. It seemed like that was the more obvious choice.